Events Chair for the Marin Poetry Center. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have such a huge crowd. And we're very proud of our anthology. And we're going to get to that in just a second. I'm going to take advantage of this time to make just a few quick announcements. The first one is I want to make an announcement in support of the West Marin Review. They're a really beautiful local poetry journal. Well, I think they do fiction too. And they're having a reading on Sunday, October 25th. They're having Mark Doty read. And he's a tremendous poet, and he's giving a benefit reading for them. And it's at the Point Reyes Presbyterian Church. And there's some flyers out on the back table. And the first publicity said the reading would be at 4, but it's at 3. And you won't want to get there at 4 because you'll miss him. And then I wanted to say just a few things about some upcoming events that we have going on here. So on November 19th, a month from now, we're going to host 2 very different poets, but they're both really wonderful. Their names are Malachi Black and Gary Dopp. And they're pretty young. It's their first books that have come out. Malachi's book is from Copper Canyon, and Gary's is from Red Hand. So they're really guys that you're probably going to see a lot of in the future. And Gary's going to also be teaching a workshop for us. And the reason I invited him is he and I actually read together at AWP. And he was the first person I invited when I took on this position because he gives such an amazing reading. He has a background in acting and stand-up comedy. And he's the kind of person, and he writes a lot of persona poems, and not sort of serious persona poems, but kind of quirky persona poems. And when he reads, he just disappears into his character. And so he's teaching a workshop on writing poems toward persona and drama and performance. And it's going to be November 20th, which is the Friday it's the day after his reading. And I actually host the readings at my house, and I cook a homemade lunch for everyone. And it's really fun. And if you have questions about it, you can ask me tonight, or you can email me. You can get my email on the website, and there's also a posting on the website under events for his reading. And then in December we'll have our holiday potluck and read around, and then in January we're going to have Brian Turner read. And if you haven't read any of his work, I highly recommend him. He's a poet who served I believe it was in the army during the Iraq War. And he's written 2 books that really deal a lot with that. And he also has a memoir out recently. And he's also going to be teaching a workshop. That will be in January. And then I want to say one more thing, which is that if anybody here has any favorite poets that you would like me to invite, I would really appreciate feedback and suggestions. And I can't, I'm not a magician. I can't make everybody come. But I really would like to have a much broader pool of people to choose from than just the people I like or the people I read. Because we all just have kind of our own taste. So I'd like to hear from all of you. You can talk to me tonight or send me an email. And then I believe Parto, who's almost right next to me, she has an announcement she'd like to make next.
Good. I actually have 2 announcements, and one is that I'm the Poet Laureate of Marin County, if you don't know that, and a new Poet Laureate. And so my project, which is one of the things that the Poet Laureate does, is they create a project that tries to help bring poetry more alive in the community and more out in the community. And so my project has been to combine other art forms with poetry and to move through generations also. So that's a big part of what I'm trying to do. And a lot of things have been happening. There's one that's going to happen next Friday night, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, Friday, October 23rd, and it's called Rant and Reverie, and it's a benefit kind of celebration of the Novato Theater Group, which is not a drama group, but they're renovating the Novato Theater, which is a lot like the Raphael Theater here, and also the Lark. So it's like one of those old theaters that has a lot of potential, and so there's a wonderful group of people actually that are volunteering their time to fix this place up, and they want to make it an arts center, really. So they don't just want it to be filmed, they want everything there, and they thought poetry, and they invited me. So In the meantime, we've invited a lot of other people. Martin Hickle's going to be there. Angelica Quirk, our very own, is going to be there reading. I'm going to read. Phil Sheridan, I don't know if any of you know him, but he's a storyteller, wonderful professional storyteller. He's going to be there. There's going to be a couple students from Poets in the Schools there. There's going to be some music. I actually have a high school kid that's supposed to dance to what I do, so I don't know, we haven't worked that out yet, but a lot of times these things just happen on the fly with my project, and it's been really fun that way. Like, we kind of meet and say, okay, here's the poem, okay, let's try this, and then we do it. So that's happening. It's $5, but it includes all kinds of refreshments. They've gotten people to donate food, and there's going to be wine there, and it's at the Druid Hall in downtown Novato, and there are flyers on the back, and if you don't get one, I think you can just Google it up too. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing, though, which is really fresh, is that Paula and I, Paula, our wonderful chairperson, Paula kind of got me connected with the person at Falkirk, and the person at Falkirk, Risa, who is the one that takes care of things here, would really like to open this place up and get young people involved. And so we had this wonderful meeting of minds today, and we looked at the exhibit space upstairs, and we're going to very quickly, we hope, create, we're trying to think of what to call it, a crossroads of the arts that'll be all youth. And so one of the ideas is to have art departments in some of the high schools send some of their favorite pieces of art to high school English classes at another school, and they would write ekphrastic poems. And vice versa. Some of the poetry groups in some school will send their poems over and they'll make art. And then we actually have been given almost 2 months, I think it's 6 weeks, upstairs, the gallery. So we're going to have an exhibit that will have pictures and poems, and an event, at least one, maybe a couple we've talked about. We think big always, and we see what happens. So, you know, like musicians and some dancing and the whole thing, try to meet poetry with all the other arts. So my question now, though, is if any of you have friends who are teachers, it's always hard to get to those teachers in the high schools, please let me know. Let's try to get connected, or anybody that you're connected with in the high schools as students too. Just let us know, because right now we're in the fishing stage, and we have to do it kind of quickly. Great. And stay tuned and come when the event happens.
Yes, because we need champions. That's what we've discovered.
Yeah.
We need a few people that really get excited about that idea in the school, and then it helps generate a lot of energy. So we really appreciate any help you can give us. Well, I'm here, let me just reach back here, to thank Elise, who has been the editor of this beautiful anthology. Elise is moving to Merced, I believe, and so she will not be editor again, but thank you for all of the hard work that you've done, and amazing getting Tom Gillingham and all these great poets, so I'm sure she'll tell you more about the anthology, so this is for you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say briefly that there is on the table a little flyer, so this is for the 2016 anthology, the submission guidelines. And we just got another editor, Caitlin Fendler, so we're so happy to have her. And I said, Caitlin, this is our chance. You must give us the theme. And so she picked water, which I think is a very evocative, wonderful theme. And so we have these things on the table if anybody wants the guidelines. They'll also be posted on the website. Okay, Elise.
That's great news.
Caitlin Findler.
I'm going to stand because if there's any readers who are in the back, we are going to ask if you would come forward so you can get recorded on the microphone.
And there's a chair there.
And there's one extra chair here for a reader. To start off, I want to thank each and every poet who submitted to the anthology. Even if you were not included this year, you all played a part in the creation of the book, and we were gratified to receive your poems. When I began my work as editor, I knew I wanted the theme of the anthology to be very inclusive. So when lifelines popped into my head, it seemed ideal. Once I started looking, I began to see lines everywhere. It seems to me that by stringing together the moments of our lives, we create a continuity of our experience. This makes an individual lifeline. In the same way, history is created by stringing together events of a group or a nation. These personal and historical events are well represented in poetry. And of course, the lifelines of the earth connect the natural world to us and all around us. When I put together the anthology, I found the poems grouped themselves naturally into several sections. In the first section, there's the fun of playing with all kinds of lines. The next three sections, 2, 3, and 4, beginning lines, ending lines, and middle lines, contain poems that refer to individual lifelines, and nature lines are found in section 5. Finally, the poems in section 6 refer to the divisions between us, male and female, different groups or nations, and the existential boundaries that separate us individually from one another. We won't be hearing all the poems tonight, but in reading the book you may notice, as I did when I sequenced the poems, a line that runs through the entire volume. Indeed, each poem has a word, mood, or idea that connects it to the next. And the poem at the end of each section contains a reference to something in the poem that begins the next section. So the book itself has a lifeline that connects it all together. I give you the anthology. It's a bunch of poems, a bunch of good poems, I hope. I like them all, and I hope you do too. But before the reading starts, I'd like to mention the names of a few people. They're the ones who helped me to achieve my vision for the anthology. These are the people who put up with me for better or worse and made the anthology possible. Paula Weinberger, who started me off and oriented me on the project. Past year's editors Kathy Shea, Peg Purcell, and Joe Zaccardi provided information about previous volumes. Casey Fitzsimmons for planning and submissions intake and copy editing. Deborah Fass, my stalwart co-editor. Prato Sereno, who organized readers to evaluate and score the poems. Kathy Shea, who coordinated production. Tom Killian for donating his gorgeous image for our cover. Larry and Barbara Brower for layout and typesetting. Francesca Bell, event organizer. And my husband, Bob Benjamin, who listened to me throughout the duration of the project and pitched in to help time and time again. And of course, thanks from all of us to the MPC Board of Directors. Will all those named please stand so we can thank them. The poets who are here tonight will read their poems, hopefully in the order of the book, so I'll call out the poems from the table of contents, and if someone's, or the poets, and if someone's not here, we'll just go on to the next. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing you. Oh, good, this is what I need. All right. Let's see, first we have all kinds of lines. Gabriel Rilou. Gabby. Robert Haas. Rebecca Faust. I thought I saw you, Becky. Can you come up a little? Okay.
Thank you. It's a beautiful anthology. From Function, Form. On the bus to Salinas, sectioned fields plumed with blue sprinkler arcs. A distant tractor trailed dust in rows like log cabin quilt bars, alternating wine, green, and gray like the earth in its seasons. The quilt was Amish. stitched in a ditch, 12 dips per inch. The hair thin, sharp, rocking through cotton on a lullaby rhythm. 10,000 stitches in long, straight rows. In long, straight lines. In its sea of mute color, one bar was scarlet. A spark caught flame, and the wide gray borders were a riot of quilted texture, hyacinth curlicues, looping patterns called clamshell or wave. I think of her, 3 states away from any ocean. Locked in long days patterned on piety, a woman slipping in fancy work to break up the plain. But when it turned in the distance, the tractor blazed red, its back wheels tracing great, slow arcs in a sea of dust to begin the next row. Not some whimsy or homespun rebellion, but a faithful rendering, what she saw.
Susan Robinson?
Thank you for doing all this, all of you. Complementary colors. Each color astounds its opposite. A painter butts them up for resonance because no one thing alone resounds. One thing alone ferrets around for grits and ham, for some kind of angle to bank stuff from. Eager colors hang together when they get along. Otherwise, they grow grouchy. They squirm to jerk away as lurid aqua trim will tacked to gray New England siding. But make an alehouse yellow wall, it will stare out, mute, until violet pulls up, then grin and wink insides the bar. Let's say we strive for passion. I haven't said that, just suggesting. Smear turquoise next to peach. Not in a come-by way, sideways and modest, but leaning hard with feeling, the flagrant ache of a kissing bruise. Now plop orange on the plummy edge. You may blush to watch the colors stir, duck, buckle, and merge. Encircle the muddle with a single stroke. Crimson. It will be risky. The line might break or smudge. How wide should the brush be? Should you limber your wrist or brace it? Those are a thinker's questions. No one will guess it wasn't hard to chance that much, even all you had, for a bullseye that can glow forever.
Kat Crawford?
Thank you to everybody at the Marin Poetry Center for all your effort and hard work. I really appreciate it. Contour drawing. With a fine point of a substantial pen, rapidograph, you couldn't make a mistake. It is a line, her art teacher said, that just follows the edge of your model. Look at your subject. Relax. Let your hand follow the contour. Sleeves, wrinkles, muscles, lips. Pen careening down a blank newsprint page. No sound but a gentle scratching. Don't lift your pen. Just stay on the outer edge of the person before you. What happens from there is all boundaries of things come into focus. Feathers, edges of leaves, beaks of birds, mountain's edge wrapped in slant sunset light. Children lined in holy light hair flying. Joy not seen on the page, only a replica in India ink for all to imagine their inner life. No colors here, just a single black line used to define pines, owls, moon and earth, how far they reach, how to get there, what is at the center.
David Alta.
I just got an anthology to the printer on Monday, so I know how hard Elise and Deborah and MPC worked on this. My poem is 22 lines long and 22 words short. It's called Mission Impossible. I keep trying to catch the moment sages urge me to live in as it rockets through my memory into the past.
David Rosenthal.
Thrilled to be included. Some lines. Some lines that can't be crossed can still be blurred. Enough to keep us lost among absurd concoctions like, I'm free to wander where I will, and all I see is my fair share. But towing blurry lines just widens them, and more clearly defines the gaps that stem from subtle seeming lies we swallow, long before we realize there's something wrong.
Next is Fran Rawl, and that's my mother, who is a poet in Wisconsin, and I'll read her poem. About string. Like marionettes we hang, twisted from the live strings of our own destiny, our DNA the threads back to our ancestors beyond time. String holds the whole world together. String came as civilization came, weaving many parts, clothes, blankets, baskets, boats, houses. The tie that binds the knotted connections between us. A string fence drawn in a circle, shutting out the strangers. Tie a string around my finger to remind me to call you on the tin can phone, but you have to pull the string tight so we can hear well. All tied up by the tie that binds, the thread that runs so true, the strings of the heart, the apron strings of the umbilical cord that tied you to the inside where it was safe. The newspaper stringer calling us into the labyrinth. Keep a hank of sinew safe in your pocket, because the time will come when things fall apart, everything unravels, and we are all strung out, waiting for the knitted sleeve of night to put us back together again. So we remain all tied up by the string of events, or else we become unstrung. From the Unspoken Word, Fireweed Press, 2014. And next, Angela Quirk, and please come up.
Okay, my poem is called 16 Lines of Thoughts. 1. The gypsy looked at the palm of my hand, cross-stitched lines, geometry of chaos, and predicted I would die young. 2. I hung onto the kite like a kindred spirit, angled against a foreboding sky. A sudden gust of wind, the taut line tore. 3. I trace my lineage back to 1874, to my grandfather, August Hirsch, who served the Danish king even though he lived in Hamburg. 4. My lines are open, my cell phone, my email, my Facebook account, but no calls, no tweets. 5. Crow feet around my eyes, runes of laughter, a blink, a flutter. I saw the horizon creep closer. 6. A string tied in a knot, held in both hands, first cat's cradle, then the Tower of Babel, then she single-handedly destroyed them. 7. He held out his hand and pulled her out of the frigid water into the waiting boat. After landing in New York, she never saw him again. 8. She drew a chalk circle, a chalk line on the sidewalk from her house to the neighbors, so she would not get lost. 9. Long lines in front of Timmermans, food stands in one hand, she waited patiently to feed starving bellies. 10. Her last line, forgive me. Her first, help me. Then the priest came for the last rites. 11. At birth, they cut the umbilical cord. At 18, he was kicked out of the house. 13. He crossed the line when he asked her for her hand on the first date. 13. A sudden jerk, the leash broke. No more arguments about the obedience of dogs. 14. The surgeon replaced the artery to his left chamber, a new lifeline pumping blood to an aching heart. 15. He cast his lines and waited. A fish swam by, sheared the water with its fins as if to wave hello. 16. A marathon from birth to death, a life of curves and hidden tracks. And when he crossed the finish line, he watched the goal sink into the flaming sky.
Barbara Brooks.
Oh, it's been a long day. Okay, my poem is called Tattoos. What is written on those youthful bodies, frivolity and colored inks, symbols of identity, roses and hibiscus, serpents, floral vines twisting up from ankles, blue tattoos? What is written on my body, invisibly inked? Hundreds of tattoos, storylines, traced and marked by lovers, young and old, by lips and fingers, fiery kisses, foreign tongues. You've all rubbed off on me. Here a blessing, there a wound, and I remember. What remains? Lifelines of wandering, desire, fulfillment, tattoos of aging, visible upon a well-worn but vibrant skin, stretched to hold a universe inside.
Barbara Brower.
This poem is Stardust. It has an epigraph. AP item, Las Vegas's stardust turns to dust. I'm thinking shoes under the bed and the good luck we looked for but never quite found. I'm remembering stardust, a silvery melody in the back of my mind, counting down the days till we'd slip away. Forget the lost keys, the mornings after, the phone calls when she'd found you. I'm thinking the night we took the money and threw it all over the room. The way forever would last all the way till Monday and almost seem like enough. The weeks in between we'd go our separate ways, sweet secret in our pockets like an unplayed ace. Today I thought about real dust, how that old hotel crumbled when the explosives blew, and real ashes, now they've set you in some urn. But tonight, Jack, I'm remembering.
Carol Griffin.
on wearing a hat. But she doesn't anymore. She sits for a long time with nothing on her head, or in it, for that matter. It doesn't matter. The garden party has been postponed. I pull the hat box down from the shelf, round as arms, black with white dots. Her eyes snap open with the latch. Woven lime sherbet melted onto a platter. No, not with the yellow as I suggest, but yes, for the queen, perhaps. And then below, the fanciful favorite, tattered layers of misty lavender unravel around the crown. Without feathers, it floats over her. She shimmers, abashed, still coy, a bit silly, knowing she isn't what she used to be, yet swims near the loud edge of it.
Prue Star.
Hi, thanks for doing this effort, appreciate it. Everything about this is soul. What is a soul? Joey asked me one Saturday evening. I reach for a candle and place it in his hands. I light its potential. The holder, the wick, the match, the light, the flame, the breeze. I think I understand, he says to memory, and I believe him.
Jennifer Gennari.
Hi. Farm Pond, German, New York. Off Hollow Road, behind the red barn, and steak tomatoes and asparagus blooming, out the dock, 2 inches below the waterline, through the bugs as thick as the grasses edging the old farm pond. We dared each other, grown-ups and grandchildren, to jump into the brown water. And oh, at last I leapt, splashed through to the cold and deep, surfaced and stayed, my arms open for the next generation as they flew into the air.
Calvin Ogren.
My boom mic. Hi, everybody. It's a wonderful occasion. I love this community, and you've done a wonderful job with this anthology. My poem's called Angelology. Few of us in this world tease the light so that its glow goes large. The way it does, we're told, when angels breathe it in and out. That's where clouds come from, too, my 5-year-old exulted, and with a look of doubt asked to whether I could make this knowledge mine. Breathing out clouds, I thought, a fine poetic compliment to science. I pulled up short of the obvious and the polluted air in human climes. Bobby Prinzer said the clouds are angels' toots, she said, giggling and covering her mouth with a berry purpled hand. But everybody knows that angels don't have toot holes anyway. Well, I suspected it, I allowed. And also, too, the clouds are what the angels sleep on when they take a nap, she said. And then she stopped as that hand softly clapped her cheek. Maybe smog is what the devil toots, she said. Ha ha. And where do devils sleep, I asked. She squinted, turned her head of sunny curls, and crowed. If they took time to sleep, they couldn't be so mean. And I thought how evil never rests and feeds on faith and the love that energizes it. No naps for the wicked, then. Sorry. One of those memory lapses. So, clouds come out of angels' breaths, I said. But what about the light? Where's that come from? She looked at me with love and tenderness, caressing my pitiable age with her glad, bright glow. I think you know, she said, angels breathe light because they love it. They don't need oxygen like we do. She kept her gaze on mine long enough to make sure I was with her, still sane or sane enough to follow reason. Angels breathe the light and that makes clouds, she said. They nap on the clouds and that makes rain. She closed her eyes and turned her face up toward the sky. My hand went out to catch the first cool drops.
Stephanie Noble.
Lisa at 3 and the family album. Slowly she fingers cracked cellophane pages full of photos of her father as a baby, a toddler, a boy on his bike in the park where she often plays. How can this be? Rows of school portraits track how his round face lengthens, jaw squares, then sprouts stubble. All features in flux around the constant of those warm eyes and that smile she knows so well. Still steeped in doubt, she turns time back to the beginning. At every flip of a page, she wants answers. Who's that? Why's he doing that? Is that you, Grandma? Is that Daddy? Daddy, a baby? Why are you holding my daddy? Because he is my baby, I tell her. Why is he your baby? Because he grew in my tummy. Why did he grow in your tummy? So he could grow up so he could be born and grow up to be your daddy. Oh, good.
Kathleen McClung.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here tonight. My poem is Nashville Labyrinth. They're all blue-eyed, these 2-year-olds. Some grin and wave. Some glare, appraising, shrewd. They ride en masse, red strollers canopied, as I begin this stone-lined labyrinth, not emptied yet, brochure instructing me, breathe and clear your mind and step inside. They're all blue-eyed, a dozen passengers. Some grin as though they know already they will win grand prizes. 2 or 3 seem terrified of crows in seminary cedars. I begin this maze distracted by a shirt one thin boy wears, bad to the bone. I'm mystified. They're all blue-eyed, pre-alphabet. Some grin and suck their thumbs. We women trade, mornin', 3 workers, black, 1 tourist, white. The workers guide these heavy strollers past the maze where I begin my clumsy walking prayer, my doubts all braided in a knot, a smaller labyrinth. Breathe. Step inside. They're all blue-eyed, these 2-year-olds. Some grin and sing a new word. Red, red. Breathe. Begin.
Linda Enders. Highway robbery. I want that little barn. I want the 3-legged stool. I want Grandpa balanced there, his head leaned against the cow. I want that place. I want that summer. Before the interstate was even an idea. Before the fight that broke his heart. Before the bulldozers. I want that garden. I want Grandma kneeling between rows in the strawberry patch,
her fingers feeling for the perfect ripeness. I want that grapevine with its purple bunches next to the gravel drive where my pal and I rode our imaginary horses, cowboys and Indians, Lone Ranger and Tonto. And now, strangely enough, I want that thief of a highway, that line on the map that connects here to there, then to now. I want the road that carried my love and me in his red El Camino, hi-oh, silver and away.
Andy, Selena, Plum.
Oh, yeah, that's close.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
I'm gonna trip on something, I think. Okay. Plum or Selena Ann is my fem name. For everybody's darling. In a fleeting panic, my body aching, my head in manic, I was fitted for depression by my fashion shrink, cosmic blue straitjacket, boots of shocking pink, day glow eyelashes, and a faux stole of mink. I walked the streets of Soho and climbed the factory walls, a girl betwixt, a boy between. Everybody's darling till morning came to town. In my corset of denial, I took cover in the rain and sang naughty little ditties seeping from the recesses of my brain. I tripped my way to Bellevue, where 1,000 plastic junkies awaited my return. I fell under their fancy, and we frolicked amidst our lies and hopped aboard an earthbound and eastbound train to a velvet paradise.
Catherine Shea.
Hi, thank you, everybody. Drawing project. If you could be a silhouette, a fickle stranger, a lonely outline of yourself, a conversation the pencil has with the thin lines of your shape. You've been taught to bless your body as the soul's vessel, recite in Latin without knowing the meaning of the chants. Is your life like the married couple fighting over directions to the party? The map is in her lap, and he refuses to stop and look at it. You drive on and on. It gets dark. You run out of gas. And your family and friends are so sorry. You miss such a great time.
Barry Peterson.
This is free rotation. The tires were nearly at the end of their lives, like 4 spent horses, and I had little expectation of the hour or so I would impatiently wait while they were all replaced. He started unwinding the lug nuts on the passenger front and said, "May I speak with the voice of another? The light is changing, and I am a semi-arid region that cannot make it rain for nothing. You know I want to, but I'm not one for holding things in reserve, and now there's nothing left. The light goes on changing, and the summer we burned for is nearly squandered. I've held none of it back. Fall is now sending queries, and if not answered, will levy its damn late fees." He finished with that reel and went on to the rear passenger and continued. "What kind of work must one do to produce days, to make them, to have them, to bank them? I and Geminate, we are consumers of time. We turn it into refuse and fill our land with it, burn it and fill our sky. There's no recycling here. There's no reducing our tempest footprint. There's no net zero on the turning clock. We are rampant consumers of time." Spun, balanced, mounted, and onto the driver's front. A coworker who'd been listening in while working on an adjacent vehicle leaned over and said, "It's time that consumes us, fool. Consumes us like we're some kind of unlimited resource, and I don't think we are." You would think time would do well to conserve its liberal use of living beings, that they might be available for future millennia. But time, mark you, is a rampant consumer of us. The driver's rear brought us to a conversation on dimensional analysis, Enrico Fermi and his famous Fermi problems. We spoke of a series of independent assumptions which, while likely inaccurate, these inaccuracies would cancel each other out if the assumptions were truly independent, not biased toward any one direction as, say, these tires are. How many moles of cross-linked rubber molecules are printed on the road with each full rotation of the tire? Fermi might ask, and then go on to tease out a fully plausible answer. And I ask, where are they all after so many millions of vehicles have laid them down? How are all those molecules strangely absent from the surface of the road? Are they, as we, indelible, mere whirls of dust? Finally, with the promise of a free rotation and 5,000 statute miles, off I went floating on a cushion of new air and thick rubber, leaving invisible tracks and aging, drying, turning, consuming, and in turn being consumed. Having done something beyond expectation this hour, I purchased a little time for life with money we didn't actually have.
Bruce Sams.
I'm here. I'm pleased to be here. This poem is entitled Nature's Lifeline. When every day you search the crowd, intent on spotting Elvis, you've got hope. If you think you can delude her that you love her mind, not pelvis, you've got hope. When the basis of your purchase is an ad on late TV, when a salesman asks you out to lunch, you think the lunch is free, you've got hope. Though your waiter shakes his head, you still try the local red. You've got hope, you've got hope, you've got hope. If you've never cleared the hazard, but hit the golf ball anyway, that shows hope. Though the night is filled with nightmares, you still rise to face the day. That shows hope. When the forecast calls for downpours, and you camp without a tent. When the market's in a tumble and you put in your last cent, that shows hope. Though your age is 83, you buy the lifetime guarantee. That shows hope, that shows hope, that shows hope. We can have the happy feeling that the next thing's going to work, thanks to hope. We've our own internal Prozac, so we all don't go berserk, thanks to hope. The gods will never give us all that we desire, but as a grudging compromise, allow us to aspire, thanks to hope. The door will slam with finality, yet we still dream of being free, thanks to hope, thanks to hope, thanks to hope.
William Keener.
Really thanks for this beautiful book. This is called Boombox Bees. Only the usual drone coming and going from our lilac and lavender. Then I knocked next door, where the teenagers' junk was thrown out, left for weeks piled on their porch, topped by a monumental boombox big enough to take up 2 seats on the city bus. From twin black holes that blared a bass line's funky groove, now the vibrant hum of bees. Not a mellow buzz, but a high-pitched volume of wings, a summer swarm launching and landing and launching through the open grillwork of that classic 1980s plastic box. Within its speaker cones, a queen and her drones, spreading pollen and nectar everywhere. Its recesses sweetened and glazed deep into silicon chips. The twisted maze of wires, its tweeters and whoopers oozing honey, drowning amplified sounds with music embodied by the bodies of bees, their golden hums swirling out into the world where a boy in the back of the bus ignored the fact he held in his lap the portable truth. All there is vibration, and given time, given bees, every hollow becomes a hive.
Francesca Bell.
Flight. It haggards you, this life, scrapes you hollow, wakes you like an unremitting cough at 3 a.m., until you hear your own voice breaking in the calls of the geese as they queue up over the slough. And part of you begins to beat, to go crying and crying into the world.
Jennifer Gennari.
Ready for another one? Ferry commute. Hundreds of cormorants rise up as the ferry disrupts the sea. First they fly west, then arcing, turn low and near our hull. Through the window pane, I watch the unfair contest fuel against feathers. Yet, with wings pumping, the long line lifts, eddying around the bow. And in a moment of grace, the captain eases up to let the streaming birds go by. Pace and pulse return, but I still soar above my sedentary migration.
Norman Schaefer, and my husband Bob has agreed to read this poem.
Reading for my friend Norman Schaefer, 4 entitled poems. It's not so funny the spider has the fly in stitches. My poems are only a few inches long, but how vast the mountains. Even if the river dries up, there will be a little stream to float away on. The trail through the mountains forked, but the moon followed us both when we went our separate ways.
Dave Setter?
Yes, thank you. Catch and release. To loosen the hook took a firm grip. Only kids, we freed the fish we caught at the reservoir. We were young and skittish, and our catch was made of narrow, bony, yellow perch. There were other fathers teaching sons the same practice of hooking a worm, and one old man alone. Our fishing rods led to communion, conversation about fiberglass, bamboo, cork, and duct tape. I'm still thankful for that universal fix-it when things go wrong, but back then I hated to see the pole bend. That meant a fish on the line and interrupted daydreams of girls in summer skirts. I wanted to use a wine cork for a bobber. That lone man did and seemed bohemian. His technique a dance with a silken forward cast. One day, our family kept the nearly translucent perch to cook over a fire wrapped in foil. I made a face back then over the tiny bones, but memory connects me with that time like nearly invisible filament line. Words come hard, but even speechless in the catch and release of life. To that moment, my father, I return.
Robert McNally. John Krajewski.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here tonight. We're going to do a little audience participation with this poem. Is there anybody here who doesn't know who Joseph Campbell was? Okay, when I read this, I want you to close your eyes and maybe picture Mr. Campbell giving one of his lectures, and maybe he'll say these words. This is called Schroyer Mountain Midnight. I'm meeting Joseph Campbell. There are stories in the valley where myths ride upon the mists. There are tales on the trails where the legends turn and twist. Hidden in the shadows are the dreams of ages past, are the heroes of our childhood, are the memories that will last. In the shadows of the mountain, on the edges of the truth, The wisp of wisdom whirl amid the nightmares of our youth. The magic swirls through forest fog, cast spells upon moon pale, as the mind of man rests in the stars, for therein lies the tale.
Margaret Stowawe.
She's here.
Writers of the Sobu line. The guy with missing teeth is drinking 1 cup ozeki and masticating rice crackers with leftover stumps. He has no mind for the girl who's plucked her eyebrows and drawn in 2 bows to shoot looks at unsuspecting guys. Those eyes never rest on the man reading porno pages, his mind miles away, deep in a fertile delta, flying his phallic flag, victorious. So oblivious of the woman in leopard lycra pants, hugging a giant final purse, nodding, snoring, coral-painted lips parted. She dreams of rewinding her life 30 years or more. If they all got off at the next station, crossed the platform, went the other way, if they could travel in reverse, would they still be writers of the Sobu line?
Joseph Sicardi.
On the Outskirts, Denmark, South Carolina, 1899. I took the bird's eye view, he told a reporter for the Bangor, Maine newspaper, because partaking in a lynching parties is disagreeable business, especially as it was dog day hot and a mob of men and boys argued over which of 2 trees nearby to use. Then settled on a sway-backed oak near a ditch, near the crossroad of 2 train lines, going which ways through Bamberg County. And then under the shade they hugged some, and then under the shade they lugged some railroad ties across this ditch. And the victim was made to stand there while one of the eminent town leaders read from Leviticus, at which time the townspeople quieted a bit, but then some stamped their feet on the red clay soil because they wanted to catch the 12:30 to get back to their farms and homes and such. So a few local reporters showed them how an execution ought to work in the regular way, hanging, then shooting, making this a well-arranged affair. Then, when the rope was made ready, they pulled the ties from under this poor sort, and whilst he danced, he was honeycombed with bullets. And some men scrubbed their hands with horehound leaves against a stink of creosote, and boys cheered as the train hustled in sight. And it turned out the lynched man was innocent of an attempt to outrage a white woman after the guilty man, found in Georgia, confessed.
Barbara Wilson. Alicia Ostreicher. Brenda Hillman. Prato Serin.
Which side are we on? Ever since the flock of floaters broke loose in my eye, I can't tell whether these birds darted down from the eaves or up from the snow caps of my knees. Same with the ears. Which crickets are these? Chirping in the limbs of which trees? What lonesome beast lulls me to sleep? What sea breaks on which broken shore? My optometrist says it all comes in upside down with a hole in the middle anyway. A fracas of unsorted data speeds through, a bewildering cargo of color and light. He's trying to console me. But I know the walls are coming down. The looters are in, setting off motion detectors, trip lights, alarms. Holed up inside, I keep watch for intruders. But who at this late date can tell us from them?
Lisa Stone Street. And now Paula has agreed to read the last poem in the anthology by Hannah Block.
It's called The Joins. Kensagi is the Japanese art of mending precious pottery with gold. What's between us seems flexible as the webbing between forefinger and thumb. Seems flexible, but isn't. What's between us is made of clay. Like any cup on the shelf, it shatters easily. Repair becomes the task. We glue the wounded edges with tentative fingers. Scar tissue is visible history, and the cup is precious to us because we saved it. In the art of kintsugi, a potter repairing a broken cup would sprinkle the resin with powdered gold. Sometimes the joins are so exquisite. They say the potter may have broken the cup just so he could mend it.
I think there's still some cake left.
The books are for sale, I mean, the anthology.
That's right.
And so I'll get to some of the best there, anyone who's buying.
And if you could take your chair back through the kitchen.